You are Derk, Derk the Unnamed. Your clan has been lost to you. Your earliest memory is in the forest, at night, of your frustrated older sister Eileen shushing you. The memories from those days are fleeting, but whenever you mention the apple cart or the nice boat captain, Eileen responded in confusion. But the haze always insisted there was more. The two of you eventually settled on the Deadfire Peninsula, where Eileen quickly found work on a trawler. Soon enough, her navigational expertise was discovered, and you saw your sister only when Ngati granted you a visit. The village you grew up in was kind. Tane took you under his wing. He was a nice man, always there to help the storm-struck rebuild. In your quiet moments, you hear the chime of his hammer on nail on salvaged wood, and hold a smile in your heart. The years passed, and with them so did Tane. You were 27 by your own reckoning when he pulled you aside and gave you his hammer. Tane was a man of action, not of words. His hammer was beaten and worn, fraught with the echoes of his mentor and his mentor's mentor. It wasn't long after that he joined the wheel once again. And yet, every time you struck nail with his hammer, there was a haze, and he was with you. And so was his mentor, and his mentor's mentor. They stood before you as mist on the shore, and yet as real as Umberto, the boy who cleaned your shop. Next time she came into harbor, you mentioned to Eileen what you had seen, even though it wasn't real. Her resentment had softened in recent years, but her scowl, however brief, was unmistakable. She told you it was your imagination and finished her drink. Time marches slowly for a dwarf. The haze never left you. Oftentimes a coin would call out a name, or you'd call out a name when taking a coin. Even the beings you worked with had a history, but never did the haze do more than remind you of someone who passed its way. It wasn't until Lucio stood up for himself that it happened. An aging Valian aristocrat was shouting at Lucio, fire in his eyes. He drew his broad hand to strike your apprentice when Lucio struck him on the jaw. You heard the aristocrat, briefly stunned, cry out in pain. You felt the haze. Lucio crackled with the energy of the sky. Crying out in fear, he burst with the lightning only you could explain. Except you couldn't. Forgetting the haze was ever there, it drained off of you, and somehow you felt more obscured for its absence. You had reached for it, somehow, and the aristocrat called out again, a wordless cry. The haze engulfed you, and all you had to do was direct it at him. It was so easy. And he obliged, and his concern was gone. It was longer than you expected till Eileen was next docked. You were happy to see her, and she was happy to see you. But your lives were your own. You were in your 40th year, she was past hers, so you shared the story of Lucio and the Valian. You had never felt so small as when she grabbed your arm and shushed you. She had much to tell you. It was 2 weeks later when you bid Eileen goodbye. You went east into the land of Ishamiddle. There was news of a caravan of settlers bound for a small town in the Dyrwood, your place of birth, the home of the blissfully. 5 wagons grope blindly for the path on a starless night, their master glancing ever upward to the skies for assurance that he is on the right course, a dim lantern his only protection against the encroaching darkness. But the skies bring no comfort, shining no light, betraying no hint of what they know. The caravan carries travelers bound for the frontier hamlet of Gilded Vale, you among them, where a local lord has offered land and wealth to settlers from abroad looking for a fresh start. You've taken suddenly ill, sweating and shivering, and one of the other travelers signals for the caravan master to stop on your behalf. He pulls up just in time to avoid plowing into the trunk of a fallen tree that bars the way ahead. You will go no further tonight. The caravan master finishes addressing the group, his bushy red mustache and sagging jowls quivering as if for emphasis. Everybody stays close to the wagons, got it? Stay out of the woods, and beasts take you if you were planning on a stroll through those ruins up there. He nods towards a looming black mass on the hillside. Whole area's crawling with hut-dwelling types who'd be happy to stick an axe in you for trespassing. So mind that you don't track mud on their sacred blazing rocks. Tonight, everybody stays put, and in the morning we'll get the path cleared. Gilded Vale's less than a day out, understood? At last, the caravan master turns to you, frowning as he looks you over. Touch of the rumbling rot, could be. There's a stinging beetle around here, carries it. You'll be fine once it passes your innards. Unless you don't drink water, of course. In which case you'll be dead in a day. There's a berry grows in these parts, small and pink, called a springberry. About the size of a fingernail. Give you cramps if you eat it, but the frontiersmen make a tea from it. Calms the insides. Should get you through the night. You might check around, see if you can find some. Meanwhile, I'll see if we can scare you up some water. Odema looks over his shoulder at his assistant, a lanky, intense man named Sparfle, who carries an old sun-bleached bow. I know you want to hunt before it gets much darker, but see about refilling our water first. Got a sick one here. He nods in your direction. Sparfle nods and slides the worn bow over his shoulder. And where can I find these berries? They grow in a bush that's common around here. Kind of funny looking. You'll know it when you see it. Doubt you'd have to go far off the road to find one. And, you mentioned the ruins? Nothing you won't see on half the hills of our Glanfall. Money to be made selling their knickknacks in Defiance Bay if you don't mind getting stuck with Glenfather arrows now and again. They didn't build them, but I'll be the effigy if they don't watch them like a mother bear. Of course, all the ones around here have been ransacked 10 times over. Got nothing left worth half a pand. He adds, with a wink. So I hear. So who did build them? Odema shrugs. Got different names for 'em. Settlers call 'em Nguithans. Nothing liked them enough to stop them becoming ruins, tell you that much. And is it dangerous out there? Not if you hurry up about your business. And not if the weather holds up. There's concern in his tone, but he does not elaborate. Taking the hint, you decide to go get the berries. Hold on, take someone with you. I know you're not some helpless tenderfoot, not like most of this lot, but you drop dead, I don't want to be looking for the body. Got a schedule to keep. He scans over the travelers, resting his eyes at length on a sturdy, armor-clad woman who spent the journey's nights sleeping on uneven ground without blanket or pillow. Kalisha? Kalisha! The woman looks up on her own time. He needs to find some springberries. Watch that he doesn't drop dead. No promises. What kind of guide says something like that? Kind you can afford. Odema chuckles and shakes his head. He looks at you. Don't listen to her. You're in good hands. He casts a sidelong glance at her. And I pay too well, if anything. Odema's small grin recedes beneath his mustache, and he's stern once more. Off with you. Hayden should have supplies. See that you're equipped before you head out. We're in harsh country. Get your berries and hurry back. And if you get so much as a tickle of wind, you drop everything and you run. Something in the air tonight. If it's a bivouac, we'll shelter in the ruins. Hut dwellers be damned. Taking Odema's advice before you follow Sparfle along the road, you decide to stop by Hayden for supplies. You see a man wearing simple but mostly neat clothes. He's transfixed, however, by a rugged tear in the seam of his tunic. He shakes his head and laughs when he notices you. Brought a whole wagon full of goods, but not enough shirts for the road. He scratches one cheek with his knuckles. It's covered with uneven stubble, as if he hasn't quite gotten used to shaving on the road. Say, is there something you need? I've got basic traveling supplies for sale if you take a look. Who are you? I'm a trader, originally from the Eder Empire, but I've been trying to establish new business out here. He looks at his wagon and grins ruefully. Life on the road has brought some unexpected challenges, to be sure, and I'm sure you've noticed how prickly the locals can be, but we're here to make the most of things, right? Might as well try. My thoughts exactly. So, tell me about the Eder Empire. It's not as big as it used to be, but it's still big. The mainland is a continent northwest of here, but the colonies used to include Redceris and Dyrwood. About 150 years ago, Dyrwood won its independence from the Empire, a fact that our companions are quick to remind me of. He gives you a lopsided grin and nods at the other scattered caravaneers. Why'd you move all the way out here? Because it seemed friendlier than Redceris, he laughs. My brothers took over the family mercantile business a few years ago, and there wasn't enough for me to do back home. I moved out to try and expand. He shrugs. Dyrwood is a former Edir colony, so it seemed like a good place to start. And as much as I admire the Red Saren's work ethic, they've always struck me as a bit fanatical. That's high-minded of you. A blush rises from under his collar. Not at all, just doing my part. Well, you were never wealthy, but money now is especially tight, so you decided to try your luck in the wilderness on your own. Well, with Kalisha in front, of course. Setting out into the darkness, the chill night air bites into your cheeks. The air is still, and you see Sparfle up ahead by a lamp. I'll have your water soon enough. Stream's not going anywhere. Taking the point that Sparfle does his own things in his own time, you decide to head onwards along the road until you hear the baying of a wolf in the distance. You don't really want to tangle with it, but Kalisha insists that, being so close to camp, it would be best to make sure everyone is safe for the morning. Following her lead, you investigate. Let's check by those outcroppings. You'd seen wolves before, but this was big. As if it came naturally to her, Kalisha stormed forward in an attempt to knock down the wolf. You wield Tane's trusty hammer and decide to take a few swings yourself. Fortunately for you, Kalisha knew what she was doing. You see the carcass of a deer, and the smell is disgusting. Your stomach is already upset, but the sight of it makes you want to retch. When Kalisha perks up and points out across the way the springberry bush. This is it. She pulls you aside. Adema says you're a working man. That's right, I made my living as a builder and other things. Yeah, how is it you happen to come out here? Eileen warned you that not all people were accepting of the Brishelgoen. Small wonder to you, she'd kept it a secret from you your whole life. Nevertheless, you decided to play it close to your chest and tell a half-truth. I learned my trade when times were good. Now that they're hard, no one has need of me. Truth is, times were getting lean, and you'd have probably been on your way, sad to say, regardless of the haze. Some things just aren't in the stars, and there's no change in it. Makes you wonder if the gods like putting us in situations that can't be resolved, just to see what we'd do. Kalisha breathes in her surroundings. Been a long time since I've been this way, but I always did like it. Lord Radric's offer. Makes a girl think. I'll give him that. You're here to settle like the rest of this lot? I hadn't given it much thought. No harm in that. Might as well see the place first. So, you must have some other plan in mind for coming this way. Frankly, probably the same things as I did before. Just the scenery will be new then. Sometimes that's all that needed. You smirk. Anyway, I'm wasting time. Odema will give me an earful. Let's be on our way. Oh, why are you here? Kalisha sighs unevenly. Her eyes search the ground at her feet. My sister moved out here some time back. She sent me a letter. She seemed worried, but that's how she always is. This time, though, she asked me to come out, and now that's got me a little worried. I haven't seen her in ages. Been doing guide work in Ishamiddle. But I'd do anything for her. She's a much better woman than me. So I'm here, and we'll see. Odema I've worked with before. He doesn't usually drive a route this way, but he's doing it for me. Well, tell me about yourself. I've got simple needs. I like open skies and far horizons. I find work that lets me live that way. You can relate to that. My family wanders too. We started in the Dyrwood, but my parents ended up in the Living Lands. I've got a brother in Rawatai and another in Edir. My sister in Gilded Vale, she's the only real homebody. Oh, can you tell me about the Dyrwood? I'm not much for history, but from what I know, it used to be part of the Edir Empire. Broke off after a war some years back. The locals here are feisty, and that's how they like it. I've been out of touch, but I've been hearing weird kinds of things about it lately. People having trouble giving birth, I guess. A lot of them. Been going on for years now, but somehow it's getting worse. With an uneasy tremor in her voice, she adds, I'll have to ask my sister more about that. Alright, let's get to camp. You know, I wouldn't hold my breath that Sparfle's getting you water anytime soon. He does what he feels like, when he feels like it. We should check up on him first. Slap him around a little. Stream's just down that way. Come on, let's get your water. There wasn't, so you head off west towards the riverbank. You travel down the eastern bank, again, no sign of Sparfle, but Kalisha catches something out of the corner of her eye. Travelers, maybe, or looters, or bandits. Bad sign anyway you figure it. The corpse is cold to the touch, and a ripe smell wafts from it in putrid waves. A dark, crusted bloodstain besmirches its simple linen clothing. You search the bodies for any sign of identification, and there's nothing. Chilled, you decide to keep up your search, and resolve to inform Odema. What a surprise, Sparfle went hunting. At least he left the water skins. Come on. You crouch at the riverbank and dip the water skin into the cool water while Kalisha waits nearby. Keeping watch, as you rise, you notice her look up sharply towards the tree line. Out of the trees emerges Sparfle, one of the guides, barely discernible in the dim moonlight. He no longer carries his bow, and there is a strangeness to his gait, his stride wobbly as he moves towards you with a labored breath. Kalisha frowns. Sparfle, are you alright? Sparfle's toe catches on a rock, and he collapses forward in a heap. The feathered shaft of an arrow planted between his shoulders like an enemy flag. Ambush! Kalisha springs into action. Making a beeline for the hunter, you can only follow suit, hefting Tane's hammer again. The first hunter goes down. The other shoots you in the side, a graze. Kalisha supposes this was the forward party of an assault. Come on now, we've got to get back to the camp. Rounding the corner, your blood turns to ice. All around you lie the massacred remains of the other travelers, peppered with arrows and knife hilts, splayed and bug-eyed and filthy. Kalisha puts the back of her left hand to her mouth, as if to ward away some poisonous vapor. A handful of dark figures stand above the fallen, treading on limbs and backs and heads, jerking their axes from bodies as if from half-split logs. One of them, towering and severe with a thick beard tasseled with knots, holds a wet blade at the neck of the man you recognize as Heoden, the last of your caravan left standing. Lay down your arms, trespasser. Do not forfeit this man's life for a fight you will lose. Your mind races, and you remember something Odema had said about the ruins. This ruin has not been sullied by our hands, men of Ire Glanfa. Your words carry no weight when I have seen the truth with my own eyes. Blood must be paid for this intrusion. So I say again, lay down your arms. Don't trust them. They mean to kill us all. You notice a string of animal teeth around the neck of the leader, and an idea springs to mind. If Galawain told you to stop protecting the ruins, would you? The man frowns and motions as if to swing his axe. Heoden winces, but the blow never comes. Instead, the man cocks his head, intrigued. Of course, but he would not. It is by the command of all the gods that we accept this charge. How do you know? Because it's consistent with their beliefs, or because it's what you were told? The man glares. It has always been known to my people. I see. And what of Galawain's edicts that weakness and age must be purged by youth and strength? You think Galawain would want some moldy, crumbling stones to survive long after their builders have turned to dust? You thank your sister for the books that she had left of the gods, and the slow afternoons reading in the sun. The man's nostrils flare as he fumes. He would not. He told us otherwise. I'm sure he did, just not you personally. But why should that stop you from killing innocents? You tried to keep your calm, but your heart pounded in your ears. Distracted, the man's grip faltered on his axe handle, and he nearly fumbles it, affording Heoden the moment he needs to dodge out of his swing, which comes too late. Howling with rage, the man charges you instead. Your grip tightens on your hammer, and you charge forward to save Heoden from the leader. Kalisha, just behind. Panting and streaked with grime, the Glanfathan leader falls to your feet. He lies supine on the ground, unable to rise, his companions now silent among the other dead. His breath comes in wheezing, fitful gasps. He looks not at you, but at the sky above you. Forgive us. Barely audible beneath his choked sighs, a whisper of wind stirs the air. At this, the man's eyes roll back as he closes them. Good. Good. The gods are just. A queer smile crosses his face. I am ready. The wind begins to swell, whipping around the camp, electric and volatile, upending pots and rattling tents like an angry spirit. You can feel it begin to seep beneath your skin, and where it pierces you, it feels as though it is rending you apart from within. Seated against a wagon wheel amidst the howling maelstrom, slashed across from chest to bowel, Odema's body stirs, and with great effort, He raises his sagging head, his eyes barely open. He looks directly at you. Get inside! Run! Straining against the gale that threatens to pull you off your feet with every step, you set your hands in the worn folds of weathered rock and set about pulling yourself up the precipice. With a last burst of energy before your arms give out, you swing yourself up onto the ledge. Hayden trails behind, slowed by injury and delayed by early hesitation. As he nears the face of the rocks, one of the fallen attackers, who had been feigning death, lunges for Hayden and topples him onto the rocky ground. Restrained, Hayden lashes out against his fatigued assailant, but struggles to break his hold. They're close to you. Despite the wind, from your position, if you were to throw your weapon at the attacker, you would have a good chance at hitting your mark. Desperate to save your new ally, you find a rock in a hollow about the size of your fist and hurl it at your attacker. Your aim is true, and the hit jars Hayden loose. Lurching to his feet, Hayden clambers up the base of the rocks. As he nears the top, however, the wind flares, pulling him sideways and tearing one of his hands free. But diving out onto the hard rock, you manage to catch hold of it. Securing his other hand, you pull with waning strength, and it feels as though your arms will be jerked from their sockets. They hold just long enough for Hayden to set his feet and join you on the trembling ledge. There is a deep resonance to the swelling wind now. You feel it in the rocks beneath your feet and inside the cavity of your own chest, as though it would shake the marrow from your bones. Each new gust menaces the old stones before you, loosening connections, unsettling balances. As you dart beneath the old archway, the entire portal begins to fall beneath its own weight. Was that? Hayden's words come between wheezing gasps. A Buick. Had to be. Then we're lucky to be alive. And we're the only ones. We can't stay here. There could be another collapse and we're not getting out that way anyway. Catching your breath, you step tenderly into the ruins. There's a light ahead. They've been occupied recently. You step up into the safety of solid ground. Hayden's chest rises and falls visibly with each breath. That should be far enough. But what now? We look for another way out. The storm has to die sometime. What happened out there? Kalisha shakes her head. Windstorm, of the kind they only get in their Glenfaw. Not too many people living through them, so it's hard to know what's true. The Glenfathan word is Bewick. To them it's the gods' way of reaping the souls of the land that couldn't find their own way out. But they'll take a living soul as soon as a dead one. Still got yours? Let's get going. You see a warm light ahead of you. You go and investigate. Wonder who was here. See if they left anything useful behind. You search a camp that you found. Found some basic supplies, tools, and a torch. You look at your companions. You're all battered, but otherwise hale. It may seem safe for now, but you don't think it would be wise to stop before reaching Gilded Vale, and endeavor to press on. You come to a fork in the path, and see a figure ahead. You send Hayden forward to investigate. A trembling, sickly creature emerges from the dark, clutching a spear. Knobby elbows and thin ribs show through its scaly flesh, but you recognize it as a Zarep. It watches you cautiously, breathing in ragged sighs. It's okay, I won't hurt you. The Zarep recoils, fingers still wrapped tightly around its spear. It's a nervous little thing, clearly, and you see no reason to quarrel with it. The creature cocks its head and approaches you, soft clicking sound emanating from the back of its throat. The creature sniffs around you and finds nothing of interest, steps back, and resumes its defensive posture. For now, you decide to slowly back away in the knowledge that you are not alone in this cavern. You enter what looks to be a temple. Before you is a stretch of glowing runes on the floor. You're not sure what they are, but you don't think it would be a good idea to walk on them. You look for another way around. To your left there is a door, potentially a way around. Kalisha points out the symbols on the pillars in the long hall in front of you match those of the ground outside. You see a mural, different kith, by the pillars, lit with flame. Kalisha, holding the torch, goes forward to investigate the pillars. A symbol of interwoven rings is inscribed on this pillar. An unlit brazier sits at its base. It could be lit if you had the means. Kalisha, thinking for a moment, sets her torch into the brazier. The flames kindle swiftly, winding their way upwards. The pillar is lit, and you hear a grinding sound in the hall before you. Kalisha steps around and proceeds to light the rest of the torches. More pillars, more flames, and you see a body. Stepping into the room, there's a pile of sludge on the ground, which abruptly jumps to life. Another fight. You're definitely not alone in this cave, but it goes down simply enough. You notice on the wall, much like the pile of sludge that you had just brought down, there is a mural caked with the stuff. A viscous slick of something dark and tar-like runs down this wall. The shapes and bulges in the ooze suggest that something lies beneath it, but you can't tell what. Well, you never got a chance to make the tea, but your stomach is settling, so you decide to wash off the ooze with the water skin that you got from Sparfle. As you rinse the ooze away, you reveal an intricate relief of a man's face. The sunburst surrounding it is chipped away in places, but the details of his head, from the tight curls of hair to the ridges of his pointed ears, still showcase remarkable craftsmanship. One eye socket stands empty. A gem fills the other. Not knowing what to do, you leave for now. Heading back to the room with the panels, Kalisha notices a body in another room. She goes forward to investigate, see if there's any sign of who they were. On the body, she finds the journal of the luckless adventurer, detailing the story of a gem and possible treasure within the tomb. You insert the gem into the empty eye socket of the face before you. The chamber begins to rumble, stray rocks dancing across the tile floor. Finally, a large section of the wall gives way. Well, you know what to do at this point. The three of you jump into action. In the mucky chamber, you find an urn. Opening it, you find 2 gems of middling value and a piece of fabric untouched by time and the ooze that coats the room. You feel the haze, and something suggests to you that the cloak, as it clearly is more than meets the eye. You put it in your pack for later. The three of you once again stand in front of the tiles. Most of the runes have gone out, though some of them are still lit with their own internal fire. Taking a chance, you personally step forward onto the first tile that is dim. Nothing. You take a step onto the next, and follow the pattern across, until you discover a safe path, and summon your 2 companions across after you. Heodin goes first, but unfortunately missteps and sets off the trap. Well, you knew it was good to be safe. Kalisha, knowing herself not to be the most dexterous of kith, decides she'd best take her chances looking for a way around rather than accidentally stepping on one of the runes. She could take the hit, but she doesn't fancy a future as a living candle. Stepping off towards the luckless adventurer that she had seen before, she goes around. Testing your luck, you and Heodin press on to scout ahead, until you find before you a spider. Well, one thing to do. Deciding it's best to wait to regroup, you suddenly hear a rumble from the cave mouth ahead to your right. You and Heodin bolt off in the direction of the noise. A faint green glow meets you from the tunnel mouth. You step into a wide room with a weathered pillar of Adra, and a winded Kalisha catching her breath. She looks up at you and smirks. Maybe I should have tried my luck with the runes. Well, nowhere else to go but forward. You decide to meet back out where you'd found the spider. You hear chittering ahead, but also feel a soft breeze, and step forward and out. It's still night, but the wind has stopped. You hear voices in the distance. Deciding caution is the best course of action, Kalisha stows her torch, and the three of you sneak forward to investigate the sound. Before you, 4 figures stand before an otherworldly apparatus, an ancient structure of chiseled adra and metallic veins, ominous and looming like a silent observer. Standing motionless in their midst is what appears to be a human body, but colorless as stone or ash. The other figures gaze upon it with what might be contemplation. From your vantage point, you are well obscured from their view. The figure closest to the machine stands out among them. A thick gray beard frames a face otherwise hidden beneath a metallic mask. His faded robes are embroidered with runic luggage, unlike anything you've ever seen, and he wears a strange black headdress with 2 protrusions that jut out like the wings of some malevolent creature. He addresses the petrified body. Oathbinder, bear witness, and see this man has kept his word, true to his last breath, full to his blood's last drop. Guide his soul, queen that was, and regard it among your favored. Let his life by the key be his confession, let his death by the key be his absolution. May he walk the world ever free of the crushing weight of the book. The man passes his gaze over the others standing around him. Your brother has done his part, and you have seen the power of his contribution. I will accept no further hesitation from the rest of you. He looks each in the eye in turn. In the sight of the queen that was, will you fulfill the oath? Will you take your place beside your brother in the endless esteem of her memory that is without flaw? Step forth and be assured of the great worth of your life's course. The robed man steps towards the machine and does something you cannot see. Slowly it grinds to life, and you feel again the howl of the Buick cutting through your body. It feels as though your soul is being rent from your body, and you feel ice in your veins. Your vision fogs. For an instant, the apparatus grows quiet, and the air is still. Then, all at once, it erupts with a concussive surge and knocks you to the ground. Your head snaps back as you land, and pain wells from the back of your skull, washing your last thoughts away into the black, unconscious void. You open your eyes to a different place, another time. You stand in a circular room, grand and domed, its walls lined with adra and trimmed with copper. The style is ancient, but the chamber is unweathered. At the far end, a great pillar of adra pierces the floor from below, its shimmering texture giving the illusion of boundless depth. Encircling the pillar is an apparatus much like the one you've just seen, but immense and multifaceted and intertwined. Your thoughts are yours and not yours, and they seem to exist before you think them, and they're all questions. Pressing questions, troubling questions, questions that must be answered or... At the base of the pillar now, you see a man with a thick grey beard in a ceremonial robe, crowned with a strange ornamental headdress. You know this man. You're walking towards him now at a pace that is hurried, while trying not to appear so. You have something you want to ask him, one question above all, and the question spins madly in your mind. The winds are quiet again, and you stumble to your feet, and you find that your malaise has broken, only to be replaced by something far more concerning. Faint whispers are audible at the edge of your hearing, like a ringing in your ears that does not subside, with a tint of the haze, but something not quite the same. Movement flits through your periphery, but when you turn to look, you can see no sign of whatever it was. You find your gaze regularly darting this way and that, an involuntary paranoid tic. If this is a sickness, it may be dangerous to go without treatment for long. The figures at the machine stand frozen in place, flesh and blood replaced by cinders and ash. The man who led them is nowhere to be seen. Turning to your companions, to your horror you see that Heoden and Kalisha lie bloody on the uneven cobbles, their bodies twisted unnaturally in death. You are alone, and far from help. Gilded Vale may be your best hope of receiving treatment before things get worse. You hadn't known them for long, but you want to do something good for your companions, or at the very least, you look for belongings to pass along to their next of kin, or something, at the very least, to commemorate them. Kalisha had mentioned his sister in Gilded Vale, which seemed like your best opportunity going forward. The unnatural ice of the Bioic has finally left you, but the cold night air saps your veins, even as the morning sun rises. You remember the cloak that you found, clasp it around your neck, holding it close to you for warmth. Suddenly the haze descended, and you see before you a twisted form being stretched out on a rack. You go forward to touch it, and it disappears in a puff of smoke. This isn't like it used to be. It seems coming to the Dyrwood has only made your condition worse. Putting it to the back of your mind, the only thing you could do was step forward. And so you did. You had no intention of going near the giant apparatus, but as you went to pass it, you felt an uncontrollable pull towards it, and found yourself going to investigate. More misty spectral figures springing forth. The massive structure is formed of stone, adra, and copper, and covered in strange glyphs. The air around it vibrates with an unusual energy, but nothing so strong as when it cut the souls from these people and your companions. With a shudder, you step away, only to find yourself face to face with one of the petrified forms of the souls that the machine had rent. Reaching out to touch it, it disappears before your eyes, but in a puff of smoke, bereft of all soul. The humming in your ears grows unbearable, and you step away. With the last look at the machine, the road before you is not long, but you move slowly, trying to stay out of sight, until you come across a bridge by the river and spy a man in the distance. He seems like an ordinary townsperson, not dangerous as the bandits that you had snuck around before. And he's definitely real, not a specter as you keep seeing darting across the edge of your vision. Throwing caution to the wind, you decide to approach him with a greeting. The man appears to be hurriedly dismantling his camp in quick, jerky movements. He looks up as you approach, his expression tense and drawn. "Greetings," he says, a little breathless. "On your way south, is it?" He wipes his brow, turning to face you. "The sooner you're clear of the woods, the better, I think." If you were unsure of Eileen's cautions before, you knew that you definitely shouldn't tell anybody without the utmost trust of what had happened in the ruins with the machine and the spirits that you're now seeing with your every step. You decide the best course of action is to be honest, if not entirely truthful. "Our caravan was attacked. I've been trying to get to Gilded Vale. Do you know the way?" "Oh, hard luck, and I'm sorry to hear it. You should be fine from here. There's no missing the Vale if you keep to the road. You haven't far to walk. But you'll want to keep clear of this place after that. We were just attacked, north of here. Me and a friend of mine. We came out here to hunt some deer. Came upon a bear instead. Great and monstrous thing, and Pearly. He didn't make it." He shakes his head. "Don't know what I'll tell his wife. In any case, the forest's already cost me a friend. I'm heading home before it takes anything else." "Well, who are you?" "Name's Naunton. Born and raised in Gilded Vale. Haven't had a spot of luck since." His face twists. "Luckier than Pearly, I suppose." "And what happened to your friend?" "We didn't see it coming." Naunton's voice shakes a little as he speaks. "You see no reason for him to lie, but he doesn't entirely seem to be telling the truth. We were following a stag. Pearly, he saw something in the brambles and went tearing off after it. We all but stumbled into the cave. Poor Pearly didn't stand a chance. Bear was on top of him before we knew it was happening. The beasts take what they will, I suppose." He smiles sadly. "And this time Galloway's favor fell upon the bear." Was that a glint of his smile? No. "Suspicious, you ask. Where did you find this bear?" "In a cave, a ways up that way." He turns to point to the northwest.
I wouldn't seek it out if I were you. It was a great brute of a beast. I would hate to hear that it took another life. Farewell, then. Going to leave, you take a moment and think to yourself that it would be safest to travel two on the road, better than one. It wasn't far to go, but Naughton knew these lands. Proposing the idea to him, he nervously accepted. You helped him pack up his tent and were on your way. It had taken you all day, and before the gates of town, Daunton bid you his farewell and split off towards the outskirts. It was cold and wet and rainy, and you were bone-tired, but at last you had finally made it to Gilded Vale, where you hoped that you would find answers for your strange afflictions, and hoped to finish some business in regards to your former companions. Clutching your cloak tight around you, you took a step forward, with hope in your heart, at the very least for a warm meal and a dry bed.